Okay, hey everybody, this is Grace, and this is my third attempt at starting this video, but twice now. Both times I started it, a kid, the same child, ran right in front of the view. And I don't put other people's children in my videos, so, and I started, the next time I started again, and the second it did it, so, it's like, really? Okay, so we're going to give this a try again, but it feels like it's been a while since I've come out here to the park to make videos, and it kind of makes me feel like I'm not getting my me time, you know, some me time. Nobody else around. There's that kid again. I'm not kidding, but you're not going to get in my video this time. Why, I don't even know what age the child is. So it's kind of an indistant, but you can see it's a child. They keep running out and running to the park and then going back to their home, back and forth. Don't know. Or I guess they're home. I don't know where they're going. But it's weird. Anytime I come down to the park, I'm telling you, weird things happen. At least one thing. At least. But, I mean, and that's not anything near what some of the weird things were. But anyway, let's move on, okay? How about we move on? What I want to talk about in this video is something that I think maybe most of us have experienced at least once. Or maybe not. I really don't know. I've never heard this discussed before, so well, let's see. You know, I do much better off when I do this. It's much better. But anyway, the thing I want to talk about is how many of us have had this kind of situation. And it's when you go to some business and you make a transaction, but what the result or the bad thing that, I don't know what you would call it, it's going to be negative result, but it won't happen right then. It won't happen right when you're in front of the person who's selling it to you or who's doing the transaction. It won't happen then, but something feels off right then. Like something with the, whether it's a cashier or whatever. Maybe I should give you a couple examples that happened to me. Might make it easier to understand. But one of them was, I don't know how many years ago, Adam and I went to buy new cell phones. This would be not the ones we have now, but the ones before, or maybe even the ones before that. I've had my cell phone for decades. You know, I had cell phone services for decades now. And my dad was one of the where we were, at least one of the first people to have one. I think back then, police officers and people who had medical, you know, people like police officers and medical providers, you know, people like that were the only ones allowed to have them. Plus, like my dad, his was, he was on a, what is it called, kidney dialysis, and back then they let them have it, cell phones. But other than that, you couldn't have a cell phone that long ago. And then, man, there were these huge things. Took the whole console, practically the whole box that it sat in, and there was this big old cell phone, big old phone, like, you know, bigger than a landline phone. But anyway, now that's one example. Is, you know, when you're going to go get a new cell phone and you're going to go to the store, not just look online. You want to go to the store and talk to somebody about getting a new cell phone. Okay, or maybe something's wrong with your cell phone. Whatever is the case, you're going to go there, you're going to see a person, you're going to speak to them, and you're going to have that vibe that something's not right about this person, what they're saying. Okay, that's one example. Okay, now another one that's happened to me, and this one just happened to me. Okay, let me go back to it. I have worn eyeglasses since I was 10 years old. 10. Okay, I'm 61. I'll soon be 62. Snap. I'll be 62. And so I have been through a lot of eyeglasses. I've been to these places, many different places, many different times, many, services that do the eyeglasses, what it is, all this. Why are you sitting there waving at me? Seriously, somebody's sitting right here at the stoplight and waving at me. Oh my goodness. I don't know them. Anyway, so I've had eyeglasses for, all these decades. And I've seen how they different things that eyeglass changes have been through and all that. I mean, and I was even talking to one of the women. She's a young woman that when I went recently to get mine, I said, do they, I asked her, do they do these lenses anymore where they're different color lenses? And she said, what? That told me the truth. I mean, that gave me an answer. No, but I said that literally, and she probably didn't even know the reference to this either. But I literally had rose-colored glasses before. I loved them. The color of the lenses were rose-colored. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. I've had various different colors, and because I've worn eyeglasses, buying sunglasses has not been a thing. Okay, but if I got the tinted glasses that were darker before they had these, what they call them, transitions or whatever. If I got the tinted ones, I could wear those as sunglasses. If I got them a dark tint or whatever tint, whatever would work. And I'm not a fan of the transitions. I don't know why, I just am not. I have lots of pairs of glasses all over the place. Who knows? But, anyway, this one, I asked her, she said no, but she said, she told me all this new different changes they've had, and I was thinking, this is not going to work that great. It was all new. According to her, it's something new. They can have all the different this, that's, and the others in one, like bifocals, and that you could see up close, you could see this. Well, I'm nearsighted. I don't need anything for reading, period. I don't. Okay, so I told her what happened the last time. I said they gave me a pair of glasses. They called them computer glasses. Oh boy, I'm having a little allergy attack here. Okay, it never fails. But anyway, so I told her, that they sold me a pair of that they called computer glasses, and they weren't as expensive as the regular ones. Okay, and it had two separate on the form that I got from the what do they call them, ophthalmologists? Anyway, the form had two different prescriptions. One is for regular glasses, like to drive with and stuff. I'd need distance, and one for sitting really literally looking at my computer. Okay, and those were not that old, so I don't know how many years it was. Just a few years. And I explained that to her. I said, but from my ophthalmologist, I've seen so many specialists this year, you would not believe. And that's just not one I ever called that, really. But anyway, but this one didn't have for both. One for that, the ones that I wear, the regular ones I wear, and then the ones for the computer. And I told her that. She said, oh, we can get it. We can get it from there. And I'm thinking, you can get the prescription from the prescription for the regular one? And so she did that. Okay, there's more to this story. I just kind of make it short. But it just didn't seem right. Something about her and the way she explained it, and this kind of like a smirk on her face when I said that I wanted, one for that And just, you know, 'cause she had asked me if I wanted this other thing, and I said, no, not really. And I said, you know, I just want them, says I've had them before. And without all these bells and whistles, I didn't say bells and whistles, but you get what I'm saying. I just wanted glasses. I've worn them for 50-something years. And I didn't even say that. I just said, you know, just regular the way they are. But no transitions and none of that. Just, you know, glasses. And she just had a smirk on her face. You know, just like the whole while. She seemed friendly, but she had a smirk. Well, I go and pick it up at, you know, when they come in, it's a different person. And she was rushing through it. I mean, it was a different person, different woman. And she was just rushing through all of it. And Adam was there waiting on me or something. And I was like, I really didn't want to deal with all this. But they were just glasses. I've worn them 51 years. You know. And I had asked for just the same as, you know, the usual thing, nothing special. She didn't even do any of that measuring. I just looked over at the in the mirror, and she was rushing. She didn't even ask if, let me do this or let me do it, nothing. And I thought maybe so much has changed and all that. Well, it wasn't until, it was today. Was it today or yesterday? Yesterday, I think. Well, Adam and I went somewhere, and, you know, I got down the road, and I don't know how far. And I said, do I have, and I looked over at him, I said, do I have my my computer glasses on? My new ones. And he looked, he goes, you sure do. Now the other ones were the same way. The computer glasses I could wear to drive even, and it was so shocking to me. But it would be blurry. Well, these were just about the same, I mean, just like almost the same as my regular glasses. And that's when it, you know, that's kind of what I had suspected, was that this woman knew that they changed it, and that's that. And both of these women, that they knew that it's, you know, it was not going to be just something like it has been for 50 years of my life. The glasses are just, you get them and you go, you know. I mean, like I said, the other pair were from like 5 years ago, or give or take. They did have computer glasses. I never had computer glasses before. And I could wear them. It's just a little blurry. So that was a little bit there too. But see, the thing about it was both of these women knew this. But they weren't about to take the time to explain it to me. And they both smirked. I mean, smirking these days seems to be a big thing for people. They want to like, oh, I'm superior to you, so I'm going to smirk. I know better. I know more. Well, you should, because that's your job. And the customer should not know your job. You're better than you. So why are you smirking again? Because you know something about your job and the customer doesn't? Like, think. Use your brain to think. And if you're doing this and you're lying to the customer, that definitely does not make you a better person at all. Period. Okay, and in this situation, it was basically lying through omission and just flat out lying. You know, because I said I just want them the way that, you know, and they have been, and nothing special about them. And she knew all along she was going to do it anyway. See? Oh, my goodness. But how many of us have these kind of situations now? As far as the other one, Adam and I went and got new cell phones. That was, I don't know how many years ago it was, but the young man that sold us, we were wanting some kind of, there was some kind of special he'd get for a year or something. I don't know how long it was, but instead, he didn't tell us that he wasn't going to give us that special, what he was going, because it had just ended that night before. He didn't tell us that, anything like that it had ended. He sold us on it, saying he was going to give it, didn't say that it had expired. He just said it was there. It was a special, whatever it was. So he did, that's how he sold us the package. Well, as it turned out, no, he didn't, because it had expired. We didn't know that. We wouldn't know that. And what he did was put in a bunch of codes, like for the holidays, whatever it was, a bunch of codes that would keep it, that for like 3 months or something, and then it would go full price, like big boom kind of thing. I don't remember this whole situation, but when it happened was 3 months later. We had no idea any of this was going on. We had no idea what codes meant. We had no idea that he put codes in. We had not seen anything that stated codes. You see what I'm saying? Of how we got and what it was we were told this. Nothing was saying codes. He lied. Flat out. So when we called, Adam and I grew up in a world apart. He grew up actually on the other side of the world. And English is their second language. English is my first language. And I grew up in Texas, and we have like I said, his country, English is a second language, or whatever. They do not speak English on a regular basis. They're taught it in school, but they don't speak it. Anyway, we have very different accents. Very different. So when we called, I called and then he called. Both of us had called numerous times. They always said they just couldn't understand us. Couldn't understand me, couldn't understand him. Yeah, right. And you got this job? They'd say, oh, we're going to get that fixed. Oh, we will. Never did. And this is not a little cell phone company, service. Nope, not at all. It's a big one. Okay, there was a sudden mass exodus at the park. Kids were running everywhere, and parents behind them. It was like, what in the world? A bunch of kids too. But anyway, move on here. And when we finally spoke to someone, and it was such a mess. I mean, this went on over a while, and neither one of us could get in touch with anybody who could do anything about it at all. Nothing. But we did go back there, and I did speak to them, and they said, we don't know what you're talking about. He no longer works here, and we don't know what you're talking about. And as time went on and on and on, and we'd stop by there every once in a while, and finally they said, you need to talk to a district manager. So what's the district manager's name and number? And I called the district manager. I don't even remember if it was male or female. But the response was, no, that had expired. Some smart aleck remarks and all that. And of course, we weren't going to get anything anywhere. We just canceled our service and moved on. So never again would we ever use that. We don't. It's like the first one they had, the really big one. Out here, they said that they weren't going to fix the, wow, do you know how to drive that? And the whole car full of kids, and you're doing that. But anyway, back to this. They had a tower that something had happened to it, but they weren't going to fix that tower because there wasn't enough complaints in that area. So they weren't going to waste, manpower, I think they said, to have somebody fix it because there wasn't enough. And they would call me out of the blue, say, ma'am, could you go and check and see if... And finally I said, look, I do not work for you. It was not a little company. It was a big one. Even bigger than the other one. And I said, I don't work for you. Stop calling me. Because they had a lot of nerve. And I had found out at one point that the people who were just getting their service got a much better package, much cheaper package than I had had. And I said, why didn't anybody tell me this? Why didn't they give me that? And they said, well, we wouldn't give it to you. I said, so this is how you treat loyal customers, is you make them pay, and it was a lot more expensive for the same thing that somebody new is getting, and it wasn't one of these special things. It was just what they always pay. And I told him, I said, well, if you can't provide me pay me back for all this time, I'm just going to move on. And I did. Screw you. There were so many out there. I don't need your BS. Then the next thing that happened, I don't need it. I mean, that's something that people need to realize. You have options. It's the same thing that used to be really bad would happen with cable companies. I remember hearing so many people talk about those, how bad their cable company was. And in some places, they only had the one. Whatever that one was there. You know. And then it began to expand. You know, they had more and more and more different. And it wasn't always cable. It was blah, 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 blah. You know. So you have options. It's a good thing. Okay, I decided to move from there. But, you know, it's good to have these kinds of options. But the problem is when the people working in these places are lying to you. You know, I had an option. I could have my glasses the old-fashioned way or the new way. They were going to do it anyway, the way they wanted it. You see what I'm saying? Whoa. The other was somebody coming down the road. Just didn't see them. They were, whatever. At least they weren't going the speed limit. They didn't hit me. They didn't come that close, but still didn't see them. Anyway, you see what I'm saying? They're going to do it anyway. And they're going to have a smirk on their face because they got away with doing something like that. Is that their new goals these days? That some people, no matter what age, I'm not saying any certain age or anything, because you know what? It hasn't always been age. About an age. But anyway, seriously, somebody tell me. Is that a new goal these days, to see how much you can get away with? Because what, are they making more money? Is that the thing? They make more money if they screw somebody out of, you know, if they get them to get this thing or that thing? Probably. Really good, big chance. Chance. That's what it is. So they smirk. Because they got away with lying. Short-sightedness, because they could lose their job. You know? But they're going to smirk. Okay. And I have a feeling that people could probably figure this one out. You know, people with brains. That those are probably the same people who say anybody who calls the manager, oh, what, she's going to call to my manager? She's a Karen. You know, people who say that, they don't have brains, in my opinion. They just repeat stuff they've heard. And that's that. Really. Because they're being sexist, ageist, and racist. Because it's quite often female, middle-aged women that they're talking about. Most often. I'm saying. Anyway, but they smirk too when they say it. Wrapping it up. Talk to you on another video. Bye.